how kindness can change your life. Specifically, how practicing this meditation called the Metta Bhavana can potentially completely change your life. I think the wisdom of this meditation practice lies in the fact that this I that I experience in a very real sense is actually just the sum total of all the relationships that I have and have had in my life. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking about self-awareness and what is this self? And actually, it's very difficult to really pin down what myself is, but I think you could argue that actually myself is very much formed out of the relationships that I have. And if I cultivate awareness of these relationships and how I am in these relationships and how I'm feeling and acting in those relationships, then I've got the potential to make changes and to maybe act more from my values in those relationships. And the key to this, the key to cultivating this awareness is kindness. So I am not going to be talking about a sort of chocolate boxy, nicey, sort of doormatty, inauthentic kindness. I'm not talking about something that we sort of adopt because we think we should. We think that's what it is to be a Buddhist. I'm not talking about that. It's really important to actually acknowledge that life and relationships can be very difficult. They can be complicated. They can be sort of quite intractable. You know, people actually don't do what I want them to do quite a lot of the time, and it's painful. And sometimes, life is very unpleasant, and there isn't really, I'm afraid, I haven't got a quick solution to that, or possibly even a long one. It is the way of things that life is sometimes a bit of a struggle, and we're not trying to evade that in this practice. Even though actually it's very tempting to do that, and it's very tempting to do that in this practice. It's very, very human actually to sort of shrink away from painful experience, to sort of scurry to the little safe places and keep out of the line of fire, if you like, of suffering. But actually, I think it's quite important, quite an important aspect of this practice is, if you like, to sort of cultivate a certain kind of courageousness and a willingness to sort of explore what's not so easy in your experience. Because that is the very edge upon which we can make beneficial changes. So actually, I don't know how well I'm going to explain this, but I'm going to try. Recently, when I was leading a Metta Bhavana, I had a bit of a moment. I was leading a led practice of the Metta Bhavana, and I had a bit of a moment where I started to feel very concerned that I was actually avoiding suffering in a particular way. I was thinking about the unrest in America and how disturbing that was, and how was this feeble participation going to do anything to help with that? And I really reflected on that and started to notice actually that I have had a tendency to sort of take refuge in my whiteness and think that it doesn't apply to me. It doesn't apply to me, the label of racism or whatever. That there's somehow it doesn't apply to me. I can take refuge in my whiteness, which up until about 2 weeks ago, I just thought was a non-category. But the very fact that I thought it was a non-category was a delusion, because I was taking a comfortable refuge in it. So that's an uncomfortable realization. But I'm so glad that I had it, because that's kind of catapulted me into really exploring my experience of race and the issues connected to it. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that, but it's a very alive thing in my experience. And it's taken, I think, a degree of courage to sort of move towards that. I think in the past I felt like I didn't have to. Like when I filled out those forms that asked what I identified with, I refused to fill it out because I didn't want to think in those terms. But yeah, anyway, I've changed my thinking about that. So what I'm trying to illustrate is that through the Metta Bhavana, we can become sort of competent in acquiring a sort of a transformative and growthful relationship with the things that cause ourselves and others suffering and unhappiness. And when we notice that, then it's much easier for us to adjust our attitudes. And as we do that, we begin to make real progress. We change and we grow, and we will experience people around us, situations around us in a completely different way. And I think that this is real nub, actually, of I think this is what the Buddha is trying to sort of teach with this practice of the Metta Bhavana, which in a way he is the originator of and the sort of the inventor of this practice. Every human being has the capacity to overcome unhappiness. It's all there. The important thing is not to pity or judge others for not overcoming their suffering, but to turn the attention to myself and see how I can work with my difficulties. And the way we do this is through kindness. So what do I mean by kindness then? How can I do something with kindness? Well, it's a well-wishing and it's a friendliness, isn't it? It's an attitude, but it's also a volition. We choose to be kind. And it's something that we can cultivate. We can cultivate kindness by noticing it, choosing to be kind, exploring the kindness that is already there in our experience. So it is always there in any situation. There is the potential for kindness, or metta, as the Buddha would have called it, metta. It's always there in any situation, but in some situations it's hidden or dormant. So it might be like a seed that needs water and light, nourishment in order to grow. And that is what we're aiming to do in this practice of the Metta Bhavana. So we reflect on the range of our relationships in life, and we aim to notice where there is kindness and friendliness. We cultivate it, and we give it light, nourishment, water. And what it needs is mindfulness. What it needs is mindfulness. It needs attention. It grows as we attend to it. So, in fact, I think mindfulness and metta, quite simply, are the opposite sides of the same coin. You can't really have one without the other. And just to illustrate that, I could say that there are three aspects to mindfulness that cultivate and realize metta. Three aspects of mindfulness that cultivate and realize metta. And we can explore them in the meditation that I'm going to lead in a few minutes. So these qualities are spaciousness. So you bring something to mind, you hold it in your attention, and by that very act, you're kind of giving it space. Space is the quality that gives a thing its ability to appear. So you hold something in your awareness and you give it space. So that's one aspect. As you hold it in your attention, in this spacious awareness, you can know it, you can see what it looks like, you can distinguish its features. So it has a sort of a clarity to it. And the third aspect of mindfulness is sensitivity, a feeling tone. So whenever you bring something to mind, you give it space, you distinguish its qualities, and there will be a feeling tone, a sensitivity connected to that object in your mind. So in the practice of the Metta Bhavana, we bring to mind a series of objects. We bring to mind, first of all, ourself, then our good friend, then a neutral person, and then the enemy, and then we expand out to all beings. And we're just bringing them to mind, holding them in our attention and bestowing, if you like, this gift of spaciousness, clarity and sensitivity upon the objects. And that, I suggest, is in itself a kindly act, a friendly act. And to give it these qualities is if you like, friendly. So, leaving aside the first stage, which some people find very easy and some people don't, maybe it's good just to reflect on this in terms of the second stage, where you bring a friend to mind. So, even when you bring, so we have this stage, this second stage, as a way to warm ourselves up. You know, it's easy to like a very good friend. It's easy to come into a relationship, to become aware of your feelings of friendliness towards a good friend. So that's part of why we bring them to mind, in order to warm ourselves up, so that we've got a head of steam for the later stages of the practice that are more difficult. But even here, there is, let's face it, there is here the potential for pain and difficulty. So, you know, I might bring to mind Liz, who's my good friend that I work with every day. So sometimes I bring her to mind in the second stage, and I'm very, very fond of Liz. We have a good friendship, it's playful. So it's easy for me to bring her to mind in her playful aspect, and cultivate a feeling of aware, kindly, spacious, sensitive basically positive feelings towards Liz. But then maybe one day I catch Liz looking at me in a particular way and I lose confidence. Just for a moment, I lose confidence in the friendship. I think, oh no, she's finding me really irritating. She doesn't like me anymore. So what happens at that point is I immediately sort of go into sort of a little mini hell where nobody likes me because I'm unbearably irritating. So now that might come to mind during this meditation. That might come to mind during the meditation. And with the spaciousness, with the clarity, and with the sensitivity, I can just notice how that plays out. And I can apply reason to that experience. In a way, this reason is a part of the clarity. It's sort of, I know that we have a friendship and that this is just a small moment. And anyway, I don't know what's going on for her. Reason tells me I don't know what's going on for Liz. In a way, this is my fear, my sort of sensitivity. And I just sit with it and I notice it and I let it go and I have a perspective on it. And I realize that even friendship is mixed with pain and fear and confusion. That's part of what it is to be a growing human being. It's relatively easy to get that kind of perspective because we are good friends and I could probably talk to her about it and we would sort it out. But what about in the neutral? What about in the neutral stage? What about in the enemy stage? How can I gain a perspective in those stages? I think it's really important to not seek to fix. I think this is a really important aspect of this practice, is not to put something in there that isn't there. Just the very act of bringing the person to mind and bestowing this attention is in and of itself a friendly act and will have positive consequences. And yeah, we use the inspiration that we've gained in the earlier stages to inform our experience of the later stages. And what we notice over time as we do this practice is that it's our mind that creates our world. It's my mind that creates those relationships. And quite simply, becoming aware of that in itself will bring about beneficial change. So I think we should try it out. So I encourage you to find your seat, settle into your meditation posture, and I'll guide us through 20 minutes or so of the Metta Bhavana. And I'll sort of highlight these aspects of mindfulness in the practice. So just beginning by closing your eyes. Settling into your meditation posture. Perhaps noticing the space around you just now. Maybe appreciating the space around you just now. the walls and the ceiling and the floor. And then just allowing the floor, if you like, to support you. And always beginning the meditation with sort of honing your awareness on awareness of the body. Perhaps beginning with the feet. Just noticing how it is to take your attention to your feet. Noticing how the feet occupy space. Perhaps noticing your ability to distinguish the feet, the right foot from the left foot, big toe, little toe, the balls of your feet, the heels. And noticing how it feels to have a foot. Tingling sensations. Contact, the skin with the floor or clothing. Maybe there's an emotional tone. If the feet are feeling a little bit of pain, or if the feet are enjoying being at rest. Just noticing all of that. And quite methodically taking your awareness through the body, up through the legs, the knees, the thighs, pelvis. Noticing, bringing the body into your awareness. Just noticing the spine, dropping the shoulders. Releasing the neck, relaxing the neck, tilting the face towards the floor. Making sure your hands are supported and at rest. So here we have the meditation posture. Awareness of yourself sitting in meditation. The Metta Bhavana. The first stage, holding yourself in awareness, might be helpful to connect your sense of self with the breathing, with your breathing. Just exploring how it is to be yourself sitting here, bringing yourself to mind, recollecting Perhaps imagining looking at yourself in a mirror, or calling your name, or hearing somebody call your name. Something that awakens an awareness of yourself. Bringing that to mind, holding it in your attention, noticing what distinguishes your sense of self. Is it your smile in the mirror, your name, a place that you love, your own place, your room? So the effort is concentrated just on bringing an awareness of yourself to mind, holding yourself in your awareness, noticing how that feels. Maybe pleasant, or sometimes it may be a little unpleasant, or even distinctly unpleasant. Seeing if you can be kind with that. Everybody deserves to be well and happy, including you. You don't need to fix anything or change it. Just holding this awareness of yourself kindly in awareness. And in the next stage, when you're ready, bringing to mind a good friend. Might take some moments to make the transition from yourself to your good friend. Just being patient, keeping it real. Bringing your friend to mind, holding them in your awareness. So there will be spaciousness. Perhaps you're imagining them in a particular place. And noticing the distinguishing qualities. Smile, tone of voice. What have you noticed about your friend? And also just noticing the feeling. Maybe there's pleasure Maybe you know of difficulties that your friend is experiencing, and you feel for your friend. So the work is quite simply about holding your friend in your awareness. You may find that tension creeps in. That you're trying very hard, in which case just relaxing, letting it all go, and then building the practice up from the beginning. Noticing the body, self, your good friend. And then when you're ready, bringing to mind a neutral person, a familiar stranger. So very often requires a little bit more effort to bring that person to mind, to give them space in your imagination. Just patiently recalling that person, seeing what distinguishing features you've noticed, and noticing if they evoke a feeling tone. Just being quite honest with yourself. All this is just happening in your head, in your heart. Nobody needs to see or judge. And awareness is all. As we change and grow through the practice, notice what is genuinely friendly and open-hearted. And then in the fourth stage, bringing to mind a difficult person, someone you're finding difficult. First of all, just seeing if you can bring them into your imagination. If you can recall their physical features, giving them the gift of space, seeing them perhaps through eyes other than your own in your imagination, seeing them as a human being who wishes to be well and happy. And at the same time, just noticing what feelings arise. It's important to take ownership of those feelings. Very often we are finding somebody difficult who seems to threaten our own sense of well-being or value. Just noticing if that's the case. You can devote some time and space to that value. Acknowledge it. Then recall that it's your intention to bring this person to mind. With a kindly, friendly attitude. Then in the fifth stage, just beginning by bringing together all four. So yourself and your friend and the neutral person and the difficult person. Bringing them all together into one space. Wishing them well, just by giving them space, seeing them in relation to each other, distinguished from each other, each bringing their own qualities to the situation. And then when you're ready, turning your attention outwards. Perhaps just taking a few moments to bring to mind the people in your building, in your street. And seeing how far you can extend your imagination, noticing all the creatures and beings populating this town, this country. And then just for the last minute or so of the practice, just letting go of the effort that you've been making. Perhaps just coming back again to an awareness of your body in contact with the ground. Noticing your breath. Just enjoying a few moments of doing nothing and absorbing the benefits of this practice. Quite simply, the effort of bringing other people to mind has positive consequences. And as I ring the bell to mark the end of the meditation, when you're ready, opening your eyes and coming out of the meditation posture. So, that's almost it. I don't know if anybody has any questions or reflections that they want to contribute.
There's nothing coming through the chat box yet, but maybe give people a moment.
Yeah. In a way, I kind of realise it's quite a big ask, isn't it, to sort of come out of meditation and then sort of start typing onto a keyboard. Yes.
I was just really struck by one of the first things you said about kindness being courageous.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really lovely, of a different way of looking at, is the opposite to this sort of like wet blanket type. Oh, you've got to be nice, or feeling like kindness is something that, I don't know, you do rather than an attitude or a kind of something that you can cultivate in yourself. But I love that thing of it being quite a courageous act to be kind.
Yeah, I think, now you mention it, I think there's something about it being a waking up, isn't it? Courage requires a certain sort of waking up, which is a bit more kind of, what's the word? Well, kind of attractive, really, than that sort of sleepy, chocolate boxy, sort of nicey thing. And of course, Buddhists do have a bit of a reputation for being sort of nice, but it's not really. There's a certain fierceness, actually, in metta, I think. A certain sort of passion. It's not quite the right word. It's a bit of a Christian word, isn't it? Passion. Which I think is energizing and bracing.
I've got a couple of things coming through. So Sue has just said about, she loved the idea of how we create our own hell.
Yes.
And Matthew has said, that was a wonderful meditation, thank you. Any tips for fostering a spacious state of mind? How does it manifest for you?
A spacious state of mind. Well, it's a really good question. You need a life with full attention course, Matthew. A spacious, spaciousness arises, I think, on the basis of attention, doesn't it? It's sort of, you can cultivate it by, taking pleasure in simple things like washing up or brushing your teeth, or taking the time to enjoy some of these things that actually we become a bit dead to. Do you see what I mean? That can be a really good way of opening up spaciousness, because I think it is this thing that awareness itself has a spacious quality. So if we cultivate awareness, then the day will become more spacious. So it's like training yourself to enjoy, that's why the Japanese do the tea ceremony, isn't it? To waken up your appreciation of the sound of water coming out of the teapot. So we can do that, I think, in our daily life. And we can do it in the meditation. It's just cultivating that sort of appreciative muscle, I think, creates spaciousness. Does that make any sense? I'm glad they're nodding, but they're not going to say no, are they?
I'll type something else in the chat box.
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to explore, actually. Yeah, spaciousness. Yeah. But I think there is a very interesting relationship between awareness and spaciousness. That's what I've been saying, isn't it? Yeah.
So Damien says, thank you. That's a different way to look at the difficult person. And Sam says, thank you, smiley face. And Angie said, I love that meditation. Thank you, Vidyasakhi. It's very open and spacious way of practicing. I found it more powerful than may I be well, happy, etc.
Yeah, although I sometimes use those phrases, so it's good to sort of mix it up a little bit. This is a practice that basically I would recommend you do it every day or every other day of your life if possible, and don't get into habits so much. Explore different ways, and that's why it's so good to come to classes like this and to engage and to explore and talk about your experience, because but those phrases can actually sometimes be very helpful as well. So keep an open mind about everything, I say. Yeah.
And Matthew just says, he asked the first question, thank you, and I'll explore that link, and that's some great tips for cultivating too.
Okay, I'm just going to look at the time. Oh yes, so we are rapidly running out of time. So thanks for coming. It's thank you for your questions. And I'm just going to mention a couple of things. One is that we've got a retreat coming up. I don't know if you signed up for our retreat that is starting on the 2nd of August. But if you can come, I strongly recommend it. It's called The Joy of Summer.
No, it's not. It's called The Fire of Joy.
Oh, The Fire of Joy. How embarrassing. It's called The Fire of Joy, but it's basically referring to the joy of summer. We're doing it in collaboration with the London Buddhist Centre, Dublin Buddhist Centre, Sheffield Buddhist Centre and Brixton Buddhist Community. So it's going to be quite a big retreat actually, which is very exciting. But you can join the sort of the Cambridge strand, and there will be breakout groups for local Cambridge people. So you'll get to meet people that you've probably bumped into in the Buddhist Centre, or you'll make new friends in Cambridge on the retreat. And it's going to be great. There'll be meditation in the morning, there'll be talks in the mid-morning, afternoon groups, and then evening activities. So it's a full retreat. And if you're free for the whole week, just throw yourself in. That's what I'm going to do, and I'd love to see you there. If you are working, but you'd like to sort of dip in and out, that's also possible. But do sign up for the retreat and come along to what you can. So it's free by donation. It'll be a real blast, actually. There's some fantastic teachers who will be giving talks and leading meditations. So do come along if you can. And after that, we are planning to start a course called The Journey and the Guide, but I'll tell you more about that. That'll be happening on Thursday nights. I'll tell you more about that next week. So yes, and if you've enjoyed this evening and if you'd like to show your support for Cambridge Buddhist Centre, please do make a donation. Be very much appreciated. We've got to pay for this equipment somehow. And if you come regularly and you're able to make a standing order, that would be really fantastic. That helps us so much just to keep us ticking over. So thanks for coming. We'll be here next week. Arta Siddhi will be leading next week. And I hope to see you on Zoom somewhere soon. Okay, good night.